Hi there everybody. So in this little video I just want to show how to get some data into the qmethod package in R. There's a number of different ways set out in the documentation, but just to get a qmethod, a qstudy working and to play around with some data, I found that the easiest way to do that is almost to actually ignore the documentation, which is probably not a good thing to do long term. And if you're setting up a full project, I think probably following the full documentation is maybe a good idea. But just to get it working and to show you how you can get some data in, let's use a quick little example. So firstly, we're going to import the library. If you're not sure how to do this, you probably need to look it up. So there you go. My library was built under an old version, so that's a problem. So the first thing to do is you need to create a data object of some kind. And a data object can either be a data frame or a matrix. The quickest way that I've got to do this is to use the file choose function. I can thank Statistics of Doom for showing me how to do that. In this case, I'm going to put header equals false, right? So before I open that, let me show you the file that I've prepared so you can see what it looks like. I think it's this one. Okay, so this is a test data set of 10 Q sorts of 40 items ranked on a forced distribution from +5 to -5 without a 0 in the middle. So this probably doesn't really follow some of the standard guides for how to distribute the outcomes of a Q sort, but you know, it's there just for a test. So first things to notice, counterintuitively perhaps, the Q sorts are in columns, so each one of these is an individual Q sort, so this is a participant, and the rows are statements, okay? And it's really important to make sure you've got that right, because otherwise it does mess up. It will assume that this first row is a header, so unless you've got a header, you will need to tell it that you don't have a header, because it will give you an error, which I got a number of times, where it says the forced parameter is set to true, but it's false, and it's because it's essentially taking this first line to be your header, which that means then these don't have the same distribution. And by distribution I mean, like, on a Q sort you'd have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and they're supposed to be the same across that. Okay, so let's not bother saying that. Let's try to get this to work. Okay, so if I pick qtest1, boom, I've now got just a simple data frame, which is my Q sort, and it hasn't taken these to be the header, so it should now work. So once I've got this data frame in this format, I can simply do the standard results, qmethod data, which is the data, n factors, and in this case I've organised it to have 3 factors. You can set the various parameters, so look at my other videos if you want to change the rotation method, but for this little video we don't need to do that. And boom, there you go, we've got the summary that tells us that it has done a Q factor analysis, and we can now look at the results. And there you go. Again, look at my other video for interpreting these results, but you can see it's all worked, and as I'd intended, we've got 3 nice factors. The data has worked. So that's the simplest way to get some data into qmethod if you want to play around with the R version of qmethod. Let's just try doing it without using that header, just so you can see the error that I've got a few times when I've tried to do it. So if I put header equals true here, I'll pick the same data, qtest1, and just for those of you that don't know, file choose just opens a window so you can choose a file, but you could just type the full path if you wanted to. I don't bother doing that a lot of the time, just for force of habit, but it's probably not a good thing to do. And so now you can see, look, it's taken that first row and it's assumed that is the header. So now when I do the qmethod, boom, it gives me this error, which says the argument forced is set to true, but the data contains one or more Q sorts that does not follow the same distribution. That's because it's taken 5, these numbers should be follow the same distribution, use it as the header and taken it out. So if you do get that, you might just need to play around with the header. So hopefully that's showing you how to quickly get some data into qmethod so you can have a look at your data and play around with it. The documentation suggests that you actually input the data as raw Q sorts, not as this kind of a summary table like that, and that you include participant data, you include information about the statements, some IDs on the statements and things, which is probably a good idea really in the long term, but just like I say, to get playing around with it, this is probably as good a way as